Hi there, my name is Ava St. Clair, and I wanted to do a video response to a lot of questions, phone calls I've gotten from people about romantic and business relationships that are completely falling apart for no apparent reason. People are losing their minds. I think the first thing I wanted to do was I'll start with Tara. I hope that this doesn't freak anybody out, but it's the best way to archetypally explain some of these dynamics. This is the Hierophant. And the Hierophant represents, in the original deck, represents the papacy. So this is about order, it's law, it's logics, it's creating, again, order out of chaos. It is taking divine inspiration and communion and putting forth something that has structure and reason. It is also very aggressive in maintaining its boundaries, and it tends to act first, right? In a balanced person, this is wonderful. We all need it. Most of us wouldn't be here without it. All of us wouldn't be here without it. It's a very necessary thing. We need these people, we need these structures, and each one of us has some capacity to do this, right? If you're healthy mentally and emotionally, you have some capacity to create order as a Hierophant did, right? Then there is the High Priestess. And the High Priestess, this is a lot where your intuition, your creativity, your if you have a spiritual life, your divine communion, the esoteric, it's inviting mystery, it's being comfortable in chaos, it's artistic, it's beauty, and all of this kind of, it looks like this, right? It feels like this. In healthy people, these exist side by side. In healthy institutions, these exist side by side. In healthy societies, these exist side by side. And not only do they exist together, but they exist equally with equal respect. And within us, once again, we have the capacity for both of these. What happened though, for millennia, let's just say, I'm gonna go back Newtonian, but probably earlier, but around the Newtonian, let's say something like that, or like the 15th century, something like this, the Hierophant left its divine communion. It figured out how to quantify, how to create certainty, how to be alpha, how to go first, how to be aggressive, how to pull all those things together in a way that maximized material life here on earth without having to even talk to the gods, right? God's for whoever, if it's Christ, if it's Olodumare, it's whomever. The Hierophant separated him or itself from divine communion. And that is how we've been operating in the world while subjugating this intuition, creativity, softness, empathy, intimacy, all of those things that cannot be quantified, those things which cannot be predicted, were then set aside and undervalued. That includes the people who were most like this or who expressed primarily this way, right? And people who expressed primarily this way became valued over folks who expressed this way. Institutions and society and everything that we've done, especially here in the West, supports this, has supported this. It has not traditionally supported the expressions of high priestess types or high priest types, right? And because of that, a lot of high priest and high priestess types have had to defer their power to the Hierophant types. They've also had to, while they're deferring that power, figure out how within themselves to gain some of that Hierophant skill. A lot of creators I know like, oh my God, how do I make money for my business? Or how do I make money for my spiritual thing? Or how do I create more order and organization in my life as an artistic whatever, right? Like we've had to really go, and I'm saying we because I'm one of these kinds of people, had to really, really go inside of ourselves and figure out what part of us lacks what we need to survive or to thrive better in a world that was created by a Hierophant. If you are a high priest or high priestess type, and in your life you had an overbearing or a toxic version of this thing here that you had to cede your power to, it is likely that from early childhood, if you had to do this in your childhood, whether that was a bully on the playground or your mom or a cousin or a dad, whatever, if you had to defer to this type, it is very likely that you found this type in your romantic or business relationships later on in your adult life. This type can be toxic. Well, both types can be toxic, but this at its extreme is narcissism. This is what we call narcissism. If you had this kind of personality in your childhood development or adolescent life, and you ceded your power and you find yourself now in this kind of relationship, because you've had to do so much integration work in order to survive in this place and to thrive in this place, you probably now, if you're seeing any issues in your relationship, you probably now have the confidence to say no, to set boundaries, to say, I want this, or I want respect, or I want to be equals in this place. When that happens, and this person is underdeveloped, or they're toxic, or they're out of balance, no. The answer is no. Because you came into the relationship accepting and expecting a lower level of respect. And so now you want to change the rules, you want to renegotiate boundaries because you want equal respect, which immediately infringes on power, control, whatever benefits this person might have been getting from you in your lower underdeveloped self. Typically, these types are also overly supportive. So you're probably carrying burdens from this person that don't belong to you. You're probably doing a whole lot of work that they either can't do or don't want to do or whatever. And so the minute that you set those boundaries, this is going to be a hot mess. And so there's a video that I did after this that sort of talks about what to do if you're in that situation. There's a lot more lore and myth around how we even got to this place, how we got to a place where this has to happen. But know that for the more, for this type right here, because they haven't had to do a lot of hardcore introspective work, really, that because we're changing society and car sharing, everything is shared, and it's more egalitarian and social and all these things. You know, it used to be that the big boys in the ad firms were quants. They were people who ran the numbers. Now the big boys in the ad firms are the storytellers, right? So this here, this person, this kind of type who's so used to living easily in the world as they are, now has to do the work that these types did. And this is extremely painful. So any kind of little bit of feedback, criticism for these types, the underdeveloped anyway, the who they are is right up front. So the priest, high priestess types have had to do all this inner work, and they know who they are with or without criticism, right? So you can come to this person if they're balanced and say, hey, look, I think you're doing X, Y, Z wrong. I think that, you might want to fix this or that. And they'll say, okay, maybe you're right. This person, their identity is attached to their decision making. It's attached to being right. It's attached to knowing. It's attached to certainty. So if you begin to poke at that, you're not poking at, they don't see that as a sense of, oh, I need to change my actions or adjust my behavior. That's a personal affront. It's right there. It would be the equivalent of you sticking your hand in an open wound. It's extremely painful. So there is some empathy for this. I know that probably whatever is going on with you all right now does not necessarily give you an inclination for empathy for their situation or their point of view, but it's hard. Just as it was hard for you, it's going to be hard for them. So likely these situations they're just separating completely. in some other situations, they've been able to work things out, but I'll explain what that actually looks like to work it out in another video. So I hope this is helpful to a few of you. If you have any questions, I don't mind doing the video, explain some more stuff, but that's kind of what's going on right now. Again, there's more in-depth history when we talk about women's lib and you know, when God had a wife and all these kinds of things. But I think for the purposes of what's going on right now in the collective, in the era, that this should suffice. It should at least open your world a little bit to look at things differently. Again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.